Ms. Lawrence, as a cystic fibrosis patient, you know more than anyone, CF patients are more prone to infection and must be able to rely on antibiotics that are effective, and that you also have to be able to access and afford this on top of what can be dozens of pills a day for a CF patient. So can you talk about the importance of developing new antibiotics? Ms. Miller just talked about that, and making sure those antibiotics are available and affordable for people like you.
Yes, thank you for the question, Chairman Markey. I think that antibiotics are not the most expensive of all of the drugs that I take. They are probably the most affordable. I am a very avid participant in clinical research to try to bring new drugs and therapies to market. And of all the studies I've done over the decades, I've only done one new antibiotic trial. And even though it did result in lasting permanent side effects, I would do another one in a heartbeat. It's just we don't have the opportunities to find more antibiotics. So it's not so much as a cost issue as it is as an availability and development issue.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Boucher, you're treating patients in Boston every single day. You're seeing how bad the opioid crisis has become. Tufts is right there at the center of it in downtown Boston, and it puts people at risk of antimicrobial resistance. So can you explain to us why people with opioid use disorder are at risk, and how can we mitigate that risk?
Thank you for the question, Chairman Markey. Yes, sadly, we saw data released about a week ago that in Massachusetts, the opioid epidemic is at its worst. And we are seeing increased numbers of patients with MRSA infections, invasive infections. The way these individuals get sick, it starts often with a very simple thing, interruption of the skin. So injection interrupts the protective layer that the skin gives our body. And people are colonized, the skin's colonized with the staph bacteria that gets into their system. What happens in these individuals is that they become sicker. Many of them are also malnourished, have other underlying diseases, hepatitis C, other things. So treating them is complicated. Many of them experience homelessness, so following through on treatment is complicated. They go into environments where they can spread the infection. That propagates the problem, so it gets into more social problems as well as medical problems. In the hospital, these patients require greater care. They need to be isolated in private rooms. We have to protect ourselves so that we don't spread the infection to other patients. It adds greatly to costs, to morbidity and mortality for those patients.
Okay, great, thank you. And there is no silver bullet, Dr. Apley. Could you tell us about the orchestra of different entities that will be needed to work together in order to prevent this crisis from spreading further?
Thank you, Chairman Markey. When I look at that, the combination, it's infection prevention, which is very, very, very important, a huge part of our efforts. Diagnostics, we have challenges with having access to rapid diagnostic tests, and as I understand from my days on Pat Carb, we sometimes have challenges getting reimbursed for the tests we do have that we're able to put in. Accurate tests, and then our antimicrobial susceptibility testing, interpretation, and continuing to develop breakpoints and more rapid tests for pathogen identification and determining which antibiotics might be the best. I think those are really the main components. The other thing is on both human and veterinary sides are very, very focused initiatives on antimicrobial stewardship. And this also gets into the realm of behavior as it relates to antimicrobial prescribing.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Miller, for infectious diseases like Dr. Boucher, what is stopping them from using the most innovative antibiotics that they have decided would be best for their patients? What role does your company and companies like it have in helping to ensure that there isn't red tape in between the doctor and their patients?
Well, thank you for the question. So companies like ours, like Melinta, we are very much focused on creating access anytime we can for patients. When we are working with hospitals and hospital systems, it definitely is quite complicated to get a new product on formulary. There is a bit of a red tape, but our organization works tirelessly to make sure that hospitals are aware of the latest therapies and provide them all the information that they need in order to get our products onto hospital formularies. However, what we do know is that hospitals are disincentivized from putting newer, innovative products on their formulary and having their use because of the cost. It is definitely more more of an incentive because of the way reimbursement works in the hospital for hospitals to use older, cheaper generic drugs as front line versus using newer, innovative products.
Great, thank you. Senator Marshall.